Okay guys, I guess we're all here, and this is going to be our inaugural episode of IT Idiots.
I guess you guys have just watched a really, really exciting intro scene, which is yet to be prepared, but just to put a little bit of pressure on your neck. But
no problem, we'll see what we can do. Okay, so I'm Nicholas Hill, and these other two here, this is...
Go on.
Hello, my name's Shabby.
And my name's Nicky. Well, I've prepared a few slides to kick us off, and I think I'm just going to use those because I really don't know how to start, to be absolutely honest. But I used to be a certified trainer, Microsoft certified trainer, and this is how we used to kick off the courses there. So I'm just going to go through a little introduction and take these guys through an introduction to the course. And it's sounding formal already, which is not the intentions of this podcast, let me assure you. So let's just have a look at what we're going to go over the next 40 minutes. So we'll start off with just basic introduction so you can get to know us, and then we move on to exactly why we're doing this, what we hope to gain, etc. And then we concentrate on, once we actually formalise what we're going to do, and it's basically all based around this chap here, Shabby, the non-technical guy. So we just need to actually assess Shabby to find out what his current skill set is, and that's going to be kind of amusing. I suppose the job of today really is to take us through the basics, very, very basics of Microsoft Windows networking. After we've done that, Shabby's got a little news bulletin he's going to introduce. You don't actually know what this is as yet, do you, Shabby? In fact, you found out about 5 minutes ago when I was creating the PowerPoint slide.
If that.
There's that. And there's some homework. And then Shabby's going to give us some health advice. You'll find out a little bit more about Shabby in a second. But he is a qualified pharmacist.
We think.
We think.
He tells us anyway.
He tells us. And I don't know, we'll see how that bit goes. It might get cut for next week, but we're really just sort of experimenting a little bit. And, well, you've got to have a conclusion, really, haven't you? Right, so let's make a start on the introduction. So I'm going to introduce myself to start with. My name's Nicky Curtis. Some of you might know me. I guess the reason I'm saying that is not because this podcast is going to be universally famous. It's just I know a few people who are going to download this, and that's pretty much it. And I think we've probably got about 18 people going to download this at the moment. I mean, you've got a few friends, Nick, haven't you?
Well, we'll see.
So just
soon as find out.
Yeah, hi to Dave Morgan. I know he's going to watch it. Mahmood Khan, he might watch it. My dad, Mum. That's about it. But anyway, my name's Nicky Curtis. Just a brief bit about myself and why I think I'm qualified to do this podcast. My working history, I've been in IT ever since I left university, and that was at Portsmouth for these two guys. So me and Nick have known each other since, well, too long really, since the Game Boy era, I suppose, whenever the Game Boys came out.
It's got to be a good 15 odd years now.
It's got to be 15 years. And went to university together in Portsmouth. Met up with this guy here, Shabby, in Portsmouth. I guess the first time I met you, I put a bin on your head. That's the first time and it's been going on pretty much since then. But he's good at making tea, so I keep in contact with the guy. So, working experience, what have I done? I work primarily in the Microsoft field. I started off in Novell, qualified as a certified Novell engineer on Novell 4, 5, and moved up to 6. Microsoft-wise, I'm well overqualified. Qualifications, right.
Right, that's it.
This is really important, so I'm just going to unplug this. Go away.
As you can see, we're a professional outfit with top quality gear and a proper recording studio, namely the flat.
I was bragging about myself, wouldn't I? Yeah, qualifications-wise, MCSE. MCSE used to do lots of MCSE training for a company called Aslan. I guess I can mention their name now because they've recently been bought out, which is amusing, really, because although I left work with them, I stopped working for about a year ago, I suppose, but I got a letter last week telling me they've been taken over and they're going to write to me informing me how this is going to affect my job, so that was kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to see. But since then, I sort of do networking design, Active Directory design, Exchange, and systems management server. That's pretty much it for me. I'm going to pass you over to Nick, who's the technical guy. I just mentioned a brief bit about him, and over to you, Nick.
Yeah, my name's Nicholas Hill. I have previous experience in IT. I started off in telecoms and moved into the banking financial markets. I'm primarily a software developer, but recently I've given this up and I'm now pursuing my lifelong dream of making cakes. So, now a small business owner, very much still focused on IT, still have an interest in IT and an interest in technology. So I guess I'm not really quite sure what my role's going to be in all of this, but I got roped into it because I had a camcorder
And you bought the light.
I bought the light, and so I'm going to do a bit of editing, I guess, and try and sort of make a few interjections and a few suggestions here and there. But I guess I'm going to be learning quite a bit as well because I'm a software developer, so I might actually be able to learn how to write software with some security.
Exactly. Well, Nick, you actually do run a corporate network, don't you? Based on small SBS, Microsoft SBS, which is small business server.
Which you put in for me. I seem to remember.
Server.
Business server, that's it.
And it's working for you well?
It's working pretty well.
How many clients you've got in that?
We're running at the max now, actually, of our 5 licenses.
5?
Yeah.
So it's getting pretty big now.
It's pretty
and,
huge.
How are you coping with that increase in traffic? Because I think it was 3 when I installed it.
It was, and I have to say it's coping pretty well with 5 users. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's been in for a year and a half, and I finally sussed why my backups were failing every day, and I've got that sorted.
What was that? The USB cable wasn't plugged in or something?
No, it was a bit more technical than that. It turned out to be that my external backup drive, because we're not quite as advanced yet to have tape as recommended. My external drive was formatted for FAT, and so you've got 4 gigabyte issue with FAT32, and so it was failing every day, and so I was just looking at it and manually just copying the files across periodically. But now every day it backs up, so I'm pretty happy with it.
So FAT32, I'm sure we can say a lot about that in the coming episodes. I mean, FAT32 probably a file system you don't want to choose for your server, but Nick had reasons for choosing FAT.
No, the file server's NTFS. It was just an external USB drive, which I was trying to use to obviously put the backups
I
on.
suppose in a way, if it's external, your biggest barrier is physical access, and even if it was NTFS, you could nick it and just take ownership of it. So, physical access, physical security of that USB device is paramount in that. Anyway, we're sort of delving technical quite quickly, so let's just bring on this guy here, Shabby Naqvi.
Hello, my name's Shabby. I work as a pharmacist in London. As far as computers go, I've very little experience but I suppose my experience extends to the basic user, which is the internet and emailing. And that's as far as it goes. I was approached by Nikki on doing a podcast where it involves some aspects of learning Microsoft and network theory. So I thought, I'll be slightly interested. Well, I am interested, so hence the reason why I'm sitting here.
Well, my idea really is so you can support your own network, and I don't have to do so. That's the main thing. Yeah. You can take ownership of that.
Most of the computer setup at home is done by Nikki anyway, so I'm quite illiterate to this world.
In fact, I think you've got my old wireless access point. You've got... I don't know what you've got. You've got lots old cards anyway.
I think just to give you an idea as to how well we know each other, this guy's network was set up by this guy, and first attempt, knowing this guy so well, I was actually able to guess the access key that he'd set it up with.
Shall I tell something? It's web, so it's very, very secure, and it's got 2s and 1s in it. So,
but it's only as secure as, I guess as, I don't know what really.
Anyway, moving on. Is that introduction? So we've heard enough about you.
Yeah.
I don't think you've got much else interesting to say. Pharmacy you do. So basically you sell hair dye for a living. Yeah. That's it. Anyway, so why are we actually doing this podcast? I don't know really. I guess we've got lots of time on our hands. Me and Nick have been watching podcasts and sort of inflicted Shabby into watching a few podcasts, which I think is a great source of information. I mean, just to name a few, Dick Nation definitely has been
Guys, you've been an inspiration.
Definitely an inspiration to do this podcast. And, there's a few other podcasts, This Week in Technology and Gadget. There's some really good content out there, and, we just want to get in there and give something back, Now, as I said, I was a trainer for quite some time delivering MCSE training, and one thing that I really do think is IT is easy. It is very exceptionally easy, and as part of this project, what we're going to try and do is get this guy here, Shabby, the pharmacist, with next to nothing in terms of technical qualifications and technical experience, to get him up to an MCSE. Now, I say an MCSE, and really I'm just using the MCSE tagline, so it might get a few more viewers because it might appear in a search list. But
it's a target. It's a target aspiration.
It is an experiment, so if it fails, in no way is that my fault. Okay, so training out there, these courses, they're so expensive, and I think content-wise they're so lacking. So what we're going to try and do is approach the sort of MCSE training from the ground up in a slightly different fashion, and just have a bit of a laugh while we do it. And I think it's important to have some fun while you're learning something new. So that's one reason we're doing it. The next reason is Nick and myself, as lots of people going around now, we've been XP or Microsoft users for quite a long time, and it's just dying for a change, really. I bought an iPod probably about 2 years ago and moved on to the Intel Mac Mini very recently. It's stuck up there now, not doing much, playing a bit of DivX, playing iTunes, and it really, I can't justify spending 600 quid on it, but I thought I could keep it if I do podcasts on it. So
it makes our life easy.
Exactly, so I can justify the cost of that. Maybe one of those MacBook Pros.
We'll see how things go.
As I say, we're all fans of podcasting. I think it's good and it's cheapish anyway. Like that. It would be nice to get some kind of money from anyone. Any kind of fame would be good. Anything to sort of bring my life from the gutter into some kind of sort of meaningful existence would be good. And
social networking. We've always been aiming for a bit of social networking.
Social networking is good, yeah, because I can't speak for you, Nick, but going out and stuff, I find it a little bit hard. I'm a bit of an IT geek. I don't really like talking to people, etc. So any kind of fame or fortune would be good. Right.
That's your aspiration.
That's my aspirations, isn't it?
We can now. We've reached a peak, and it's now downhill. But we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, guys. So I think the first step we're going to do is to concentrate on Shabby here and just go through a little skills assessment, just have a little bit of fun. And I need to find out how much the guy actually knows and how much he doesn't know, and we can concentrate on those areas. The lesson plan has not been finalised at all, so I'm going to sort of generate it week by week as we go along. But today I've got an idea. We're going to cover some basic networking principles, some basic ones, and this is sort of like a pilot podcast we're going to go through.
Sounds a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's not so bad. And look at my PowerPoint. I've got Shabby :S, brush with technology. That's interesting, isn't it?
It's almost ironic.
It is. Yeah. I don't know. Irony. So, Americanism. Let's not go. Right, Shabby's brush with technology. Technology breakdown. So you've got quite a lot of technology in your flat, haven't you, Shabby? So if you just run through, I suppose your major brush with technology, you're quite into your old consoles, aren't you?
Yeah,
so
I've done that.
Consoles-wise, what are you currently running and playing at the moment?
I've recently bought a Xbox 360. I've managed to get a couple of games. I've got Project Gotham Racing 3, also Call of Duty 2, which is doing my head in because I can't complete it.
Are you playing live on that?
No, I'm trying to build up what I can.
Have you played live on anything on Project Gotham or anything?
Project Gotham, yeah.
Wow, so you hooked your Xbox up live?
Let's move on very quickly.
Okay. So yeah, Xbox. He's got Xbox Live hooked up through my old wireless router. Okay, so consoles. He's pretty into consoles. He's up there. Mobile phones. He's got some mobile phones. He's got some Nokia device thing at the moment. And I don't know how relevant that is. So I'm going to move on to a computer breakdown next. You've got two computers. So if you just run me through the computers, the one in your bedroom. What actually is that?
It's a fairly old model made by Time. I think they've gone bust.
You've got a time machine.
Wow.
Paid. What was it? I don't know. Paid £900 for it. I can't honestly tell you what the spec is because I don't know.
You're still making the repayments on that.
So the specifications. So if I ask you processor, how much memory's it got?
Memory, I think it's got about 60 gig.
60 gig memory.
60 gig memory, yeah, okay. I know that much.
It's quite a lot.
It's got an old AMD processor in, so is that fairly slow? Oh, is it Athlon? If I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about hard disk?
Hard disk. What, in terms of size or the processor?
Size of it.
Oh, I think 80 gig.
80 gig.
80 gig.
So
I
you've
do
got
know that.
60 gig memory in 80 gig hard disk.
No, I know it's an 80 gig hard disk. I don't know what. Memory's 256, isn't it?
256, so it's 60. So this sort of shows you the kind of battle we're up against here. I don't actually know what the spec of your machine is. It is quite an old machine now. It's an old time machine. Well, I don't think you switched it on recently. You've got a laptop now, haven't you? And a laptop.
Oh, yes.
What about the spec on that? Can you run us through that?
I think it's got a 30 gig hard drive. Can't tell you what kind of processor it's got in there. It's got a great ATI Mobility Radeon 9000 video card, Nick.
Oh yeah, that
thought
plays.
because
That's
it's
right. Guild Wars, isn't it?
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah, play Guild Wars quite a bit. What else can I say? Well, my basic knowledge, like I said, it goes as far as emailing and internet use.
And you're quite good at the internet. You're quite good at things like selling things on eBay.
Oh yeah,
that comes naturally to you.
At this point, I would really love to cut to show you this guy's flat and the stuff he has to sell.
He's got an eBay room. The stuff that he wants to sell on eBay, he just pops into this room.
I'm going to see if I can just get a little bit of footage just to slip in at this point.
Okay. You must be able to edit that in right now.
I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give it a go.
Okay. So
it's horrible. It's horrible.
But anyway, it's not your main thing in life, is it? You're just a farmer. You're a pill pusher, aren't you, basically?
I'm a legal pill pusher. That's
legal
right.
Pill pusher.
Work in Brixton.
Okay, so that's the sort of skills assessment, and let's go. Right.
Sorry, we're looking at the PowerPoint slideshows here.
Well, we should be able to splice this in so you can see what we're seeing. And
I
so
think
I'm
it's
not
only
quite
fair.
sure it's going to work out, but the podcasts that we've seen have been fairly low professional. Let's not go there.
No, let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Okay, so what I want to do first. Right, let's go into basic networking first. Now, Shabby, at the moment, you're running Windows XP on your desktop machine and your laptop machine, Windows XP.
Right.
So you've seen Windows XP at all, and what I want to do today is to show you how that Windows XP works in a corporate network. Okay, so what I've got on the laptop in front of me, I'm just going to make sure I'm actually capturing this so you guys can actually see this as well, is I'm running this product called VMware, and you can get this software from VMware.com. It's a really, really great way to learn new things or to learn about networking. It's also great if you have a corporate network like Nick, and he wants to do a little bit of testing on a new, let's say, mail server application or anything like that without having too much impact on his real network. So VMware, definitely recommend that tool. So VMware.com, and I think if you go there, you can download an evaluation copy for 30 days. But anyway, here's VMware, and this is just Windows XP. Now, Windows XP, it's just been installed out of the box, or this is the RTM version of Windows XP, the release to manufacturing version. Oh, you're making notes there, are you?
Oh, yeah.
That's quite impressive. Just what actually you got in there? It's amazing, actually, because as I said, I've done quite a lot of NCSE training, and one thing you do notice at the start of courses is people write notes. And when you're tidying up the classroom at the end of the week, you can see their notes, and it's pretty much got everything. Yeah, it's got the title, it's got your name. Well, we've got VMware.com and there, Windows XP Corporate Network, yeah. But you'll probably get back to about that and you'll stop.
I'd like to just interject one thought, and that is that unlike a real training course, being the first day, we haven't all turned up in suits, because that's an important
This is
thing.
true, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel we haven't got the authentic training course thing here.
I thought about it, but I was a bit concerned about Shabby, because do you own a suit?
Anyway, it's not compulsory on the second day, and you were cool enough not to wear one on first. It's because he's not from an IT background.
I think so, yeah.
He naturally came dressed casual.
Is that how you spell IT?
Okay, back onto it. Windows XP. Let's have a look at Windows XP and how it fits into a corporate network. So, in order to do this, I'm just going to draw a few diagrams on something out of this VMware, and it's going to just help me show you. So, I suppose in your network, and this is the way I generally draw a network, Shabby, and it's fairly consistent with how most people draw networks. They actually choose a pen first, however. I'm just going to draw a little line there, and that's just going to represent your network. Now, hanging off that network, on a corporate network, you're going to have some client machines, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, those client machines are running Windows XP, just like what you're running at home,
Sure.
Windows XP.
Okay.
So, at the moment, Nick's running 5 client machines. There's organisations out there running thousands, tens of thousands of them. The current company I'm involved with has got 28,000 odd users involved in designing that at the moment. So that's Windows XP, and I think the first thing I want to do is just take you through the concept of what a workgroup is and what a domain is. So I've got, on this network now, I've got 2 Windows XP boxes. What benefits is that going to give me having those 2 machines on the network, dude? What would you...
You could communicate with each other, I suppose, because they're linked to one network. If you communicate one piece of information to one machine, the other machine will also realise it.
In a way, that's
downloading instruction.
One thing you've got to say in the MCC training course is sort of completely wrong. Right, so let's have a look at it from a networking point of view. So typical on this network, I've started up as a small little company, and I've bought 2 client machines, 2 XP machines, and I want them to both have internet access. So what I could do is put those 2 XP machines on a network. Okay, invest in one of these little ADSL routers, which you've actually got. Okay, you've actually got a cable modem router, and connect that off to the internet. And now all of these guys can now access the internet through that router. Now, this is in actual fact what you've got at home, dude. You've got, that XP machine there, that could be your workstation. Okay, and that could be your laptop, and you have got that. That's your router, or my old router, and you can access the internet through that router. So that's one reason to have a network. But when you look at a company, what they have in that network is a large amount of resources like printers and files, and what we want to do is control access to those resources. So, this small company now, they want to be able to print. So they've got a choice. You can buy a printer and stick it in the USB port of the XP machine, but what we want to do probably is actually just, come on, wake up, Mr. Touchpaddy thing. We can just get ourselves a printer and just plug it onto there. And now that one XP machine can access that printer, it's directly connected to the USB port. Now, to save a bit of money, I want that other XP machine, okay, the one on the left-hand side of the screen, to access that printer. And of course, now there is a network connection. There is a network connection, so they're connected middle line. So now that XP machine can print to that printer, and everyone can, in effect, communicate with that access that printer. And that's obviously cost-saving already. If you've got 10 client machines, you've obviously just saved money on 9 extra printers. So we can all print out and buy that. Now, what I've drawn here is a work group. And, in a corporate network, work groups are not that typical. We want something called a domain. But I think it's nice to start with the ground up with this guy because he knows nothing. So let's just concentrate on a work group and examine a little bit more about a work group. So
it's not an unreasonable place for a small business to start either.
No, not at all. And it's very easy to transition from this small work group network to a domain-based network, and
which is what we did, in fact.
Exactly, yeah. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to go to VMware. So I'm running VMware on this machine. I'll just full screen this a little bit to give you a better view. It doesn't really matter that you might not be able to read this, so it's just to give you an idea of the tools I'm using. So here's my Windows XP. Now, your machine at home running Windows XP, you probably don't see this log on screen.
I don't.
But it is there. It's just automatically doing it in the background. Now, in a corporate network, you would need to supply credentials to log on to a machine for obvious reasons. On that machine there could be important salary-based files, there could be payroll information, very, very confidential data. So security is utmost importance in a corporate network. And that, again, is the downside of a work group. It's hard to secure. Because if I've got this machine here, this Windows XP machine, and I want you, Shabby, to be able to use this XP machine, you would have to have an account defined in the local account database of this machine. In actual fact, in a work group, every Windows XP machine has got a local account database. So let's have a look at this local account database. So I've just logged on to the machine as an administrator. Okay, so you have administrators on XP machines, you have non-administrators, and an administrator, they can control, they can configure, they can set up their overall, power of this machine, power user of the machine, sorry. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is take you to the account database of this machine. Now, what I said before, let me just minimize this. If I go back to my picture, every single one of those machines, so these XP machines, has got a local account database. So if we just draw this XP machine, we'll have an account database here. And in that account database, you've got a list of users who can use that machine. So let's just put a user account in here and say Nicky's in here, Nick's in here. Now it's also got the password stored in there. So I'm just going to really crudely depict the password just by drawing it there. Obviously it's never going to be stored in clear text. So we've got Nicky has got a local account there, and Nick's got a local account on that machine. So at any point they can, or Nicky or Nick can log onto this machine. Okay. But I want to log onto that machine now. So the bottom left, let's give that a name. Let's not give it a name. Okay, so the machine in the bottom left, the XP machine there. Let's say Nicky wants to log onto that. Well, Nicky will only be able to log onto that machine if Nicky's got a defined account in that account database. Got that? Okay, so we've got one XP machine there. In that account database, I've got user Nicky and user Nick.
Yep.
That means to use that machine, Nicky can log onto it.
Of course.
Or Nick can log onto it.
Gotcha.
Okay, so quite simple at first. Let's say that was the machine I use every day. That machine's now broken.
Okay.
Okay, so I come in, I need to do my work badly. I want to log onto that machine. Well, that machine down the bottom has got a different account database. And in this account database, this might be, let's just draw this out. We might have different settings. Let's say this is Bob's machine. Now, the only person who can actually log onto that XP machine is Bob. He's the only one who's got a localized account.
Cool.
So, in a work group, it's very, very decentralized. You've got all these account databases all over the place, and what we really want to do is centralize on these, and that's just leading you to the concept of what a domain actually is. Right, bored yet?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay. No. Well, I think the next step is let's just go back to this XP machine and investigate this local account database. F11. How do I use VMware? Okay. Now, there's various different ways of getting to that local account database. Now, I'm going to go into it this way. It's not the way I normally go into it. So we go to the My Computer icon. We right-click on it. And we go to Manage. I think that makes sense. And we're managing My Computer. We're adding an account to the local database. So that's Manage. Yeah, and just wait for a little while. And up pops a Computer Management Console. Now, in here you've got loads of little snappy tools. You can create partitions on your hard disk. You can have a look at some event logs to see the health of the system. But, we're not going to dive into that yet. I mean, the guy just literally knows what a keyboard is. So let's go into the local account databases here. And we can see the local account database, we've got administrator can log onto this machine. We've got an account called help assistant, an account called support underscore. Now these accounts here, guest and support underscore, they've got a red cross next to them. It means they're disabled, can't be used. Okay. So if this was your machine, Shabby, what I could start with is creating you a user account. So just right click on user, say new. So the username, Shabby Nakby. Full name, Shabby Nakby. Description,
Possibly.
New to computers. Let's give you a password.
Thanks for mixing.
You're not worthy of a description, mate. Right, user cannot change password. We do that. Right, and I'll just click on create.
Initially, in order to go into computer management, what did you access on the start screen?
Okay, I went to my computer.
No.
Right-clicked on it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I went to manage. And this is the kind of thing that you can do this week, dude. Have a look at your machines, perhaps find out what they are, the specifications of them, and you can tell us next week. So, we've got Shabby Nakby in there. He can use this machine. So just to show you that, I'm going to log off the machine as an administrator.
I don't know if this is copyright on the...
Well, that jingle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably should do, it's catchy. Right, so log on screen, username, administrator. Yeah, obviously I want to log on as Shabby Nagbe. Okay, so username, just do Shabby Nagbe, and your password, just tap that in there. And hit OK, and it will log you on as that user. Now, under the options here, there's really no options to show you at the moment, but when we join a domain, there'll be a lot more options to show you, so I'm going to ignore that for the moment, and let's just log on. So this sets up a whole environment for Shabby. It's cool. That's as far as I'm going to take it for the moment. So all we've really seen is the fact that this is a workgroup machine. It's got a local account database, which I've shown you. I've created a user Shabby, and Shabby can log on. Now, if I just create something on here, let's just create a new WAV sound and just click on it.
And leave it on the desktop, like a usual...
Yeah, like a user it does.
Not a typical desktop till it's littered with at least 2 dozen or 3 dozen icons.
Let's just log off. And we log back on. Sorry about that. Log back on to the machine as an administrator. And we're back to the administrator profile. And do notice that there's no icons. Well, the icon that I dragged on the desktop, new WAV size. Now that's good because, I mean, it's the same with my documents. So when I look at my documents, when you log on, your My Documents here will be totally different.
Okay.
So now we've got 2 users who can use this machine, the administrator, Shabby Nagbe, and when they log on, it's like they've got their own machine almost. You know, they can keep their own settings, their own files. If you create a favourite logged on as you, when the administrator logs on, they don't see it. You know, it's all personalised and it's all fairly well protected as well. Okay, so that's just a basic local account database. How are we doing for timing, guys? I didn't see one time we started this.
Good point.
I can't tell you at the moment. But I guess we'll just keep going and
see what happens, yeah.
So I guess if it's that long, you've got the incentive to watch it, having used up all the bandwidth download time.
So going back to my wonderful picture here, we can see we've got 4 XP machines, and I can see the XP machine in the top left. We've got a user there called Nikki, whose password's ABC. We've got a user there called Nick, whose password's 123. Now, those users I've mentioned before, just a little bit of repetition, can log on to that one machine, and that one machine only. Now, in the network, if I wanted Nikki to be able to log on to each one of those 4 machines in a work group, what we would have to do is create a user account in each of the local account databases on these 4 machines here. So it's quite clear that when you're dealing with a network of, let's say, 5,000 XP machines, they're not going to be creating 5,000 user accounts. What they do is they centralize their accounts, so they have a centralized account database. And what I'm going to do is let's go through that concept now, and that's referred to as a domain. So I don't know if I can adjust this picture a little bit. Let's get my eraser out. That would do. Professional trainer, me. And let's just draw in something called a domain controller. Now, this domain controller, Shabby, it's running a server operating system, a server-based operating system. Whereas those 4 machines are running XP, that's generally referred to as a client operating system, and clients request resources. They don't often provide resources, they just request. They say, give me that file, I want access to the internet, you know, that kind of thing, and the server provides it and says, here's your file, mate. You know, and then the server also provides account authentication. So in this case, we've got our machine there, and I'm going to say domain controller.
In order to create a domain, you have to have a domain controller.
That's exactly right. Good question, man. I'm impressed. Yeah, in order to create a domain, you need a single domain controller minimum. Now, when you're talking about large networks, let's say your 5,000 user network, it's quite clear that if that DC goes down, down goes the account database, no one can log on. Okay, so you know, fault tolerance is an issue. So how do you think we solve that?
I don't know.
So I've got one DC, and one DC goes down, no one can log on.
One DC goes down, no one can log on. You can't create another DC.
Yeah, you can. You can have multiple domain controllers. So the domain controller just controls the domain. It doesn't define the domain. It just controls it. So we've got one domain controller there. I can have a couple of domain controllers, but before we get into that, let's just have a look at a single domain controller. Now, this domain controller here has got another account data. It's got a centralized account database on it, much like the one we just saw under Windows XP. And that centralized one is referred to as Active Directory, or AD for short, Active Directory. So now if I put a user account inside there, let's put a user account, I'm just going to write this one, Bob. Bob2, because we've got a Bob down there, bottom left. Now, because I define that on the domain account database, if those 4 XP machines are a member of the domain as well, then it means that account there, Bob2, can be used to gain access to any of those 4 machines.
Okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, looking at it now, we get another user comes in, Bob3. We can either create Bob3 there, and there, or we can create them once there. What are you going to do? It's clear you're going to create it once, aren't you? Also, there's much more downsides to a work group than I'm showing you. I just don't want to confuse you.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Password issues and such. But we will get technical. There will be time to get down into technicalities a bit later on. Not this episode, however. So we've got Bob2 there. Now, what I want to show you, just to give you the concept of what a corporate network is, I don't want to show you Media Player. I'm going to go back to my VMware session. Now, in VMware, what I'm running, when it comes back to me, is I'm running Windows XP. You can see that. That's the one we've just seen. Now, this is the one that's got a local account database with, we just created you an account, didn't we, Shabby Nagby, an administrator. And now let's pretend we've got 10 machines, 10 XP machines.
Right.
And I want to create an account that can log onto those 10 machines. So where are you going to create the account?
You want to create an account in all those machines. So hopefully you've got a domain controller attached to it.
It's amazing. It's the right question to ask, mate. Yeah, hopefully we've got a domain controller. We define it on the domain, and all of those XP machines can look in the domain for their accounts, rather than looking locally.
So if there's a network, if there's a corporate network, that means that there's always a domain controller set up on that
Generally
network.
speaking, I would say in the vast majority of cases, yeah. There are reasons to maintain a work group, but you wouldn't generally run your whole network as a work group, certainly not.
You said XP is a client, because we asked for it to do things, give me this file,
Yeah.
use the internet. XP is a client server? No, client, when you're saying that it gives you files, whereas something else serves it, or a server does something.
Your XP machine is a client. It requests files. So think about when you use your machine, you're requesting files off the internet, I suppose, aren't you, in a way? Now, if I was at work, all my documents are stored in the server. So my XP laptop it requests files off the server. So I want that file, so it's a requester.
Okay.
Whereas the server provides access. Okay, so it provides access. Now, you asked a question earlier, is XP a server, client server? In actual fact, it is. It can provide access to resources. However, in a corporate network, you generally have all your resources on a server because you can lock it down, you can control access a lot easier, and you just keep these XP machines as clients. That's all they do. They run applications, and they give you access to files. You simplify them. So, here's my XP machine. It's in a work group. Let's have our first look at a domain. So here's Windows Server 2003, and this is a domain controller. Now, it looks much like Windows XP. It's not much difference at all at the moment. So what we're going to do is actually log on to it. Now, the account defined in the local account database is administrator, and this is a default account. It's a default account. So the local account the account I can use to administer this is administrator. The account I can use to administer it, the local account database on XP is administrator. Which actually leads me to something kind of interesting. The administrator account is quite a good idea to actually get that one renamed. Because in the first stages of attack, if you asked me if I was on Nick's network and someone said, oh, can you try and hack into it? Well, most hackers would probably try and guess the administrator and password first of all. It's sort of like a dummy attack. And if you've renamed administrator account, you know, it doesn't give the user any clues. All they get back is username or password's incorrect. So they could be typing administrator in there, you know, all the time. They're never going to guess it because you rename your administrator password to Bob or something, or your administrator account to Bob or something. So that's not a bad tip to rename that account. So we're logging on to the domain controller. Now on the domain controller we've got quite a few administration tools. As you can see, I've just gone to Start Admin Tools, and I shouldn't worry too much about the complexity of where you get here at the moment, do you? So Active Directory users of computers, or the domain. We can administer the domain, from within Active Directory users of computers. So there's the domain account database. It looks slightly different to the XP one. It's hierarchical, if you know what that means.
Well,
like an organisational chart, you can say, right, these people are sales users, so let's put them in that sales container. These people are marketing users, they can go in a marketing container. And we will go into that when the time comes, but we're just going through conceptually what a workgroup and what a domain is today. So, if we have a look inside here, there's the users of this domain. Now, there's also some groups in here, and don't worry too much at the moment, but what I'm going to do is just create a new user in the domain. Now this user I'm going to call Fred, because I'm not very imaginative. Don't worry about it, don't want too much, do you? So all I'm doing is I'm just creating a user account on the domain. Okay, so we can now see in the list, Fred's down there as a user. So if I was running a domain here, and the XP clients would join to the domain, then Fred will be able to log on to any one of those XP clients joined to the domain.
Sure.
Okay, so let's go back to this machine here. This is my XP machine. Now the trouble with this is in a work group, so I can't actually log on as that user I've created in the domain as yet. But what I can do is change this machine so it's not a member of a work group anymore. We don't do it like that. We right click on my computer. Bugger off, man. Right click on my computer, go to properties, and go to computer name. Now at the moment it says I'm a member of a work group called Workgroup. To rename this computer or join a domain, click change. So I'm just going to click on change there. Now we can see the name of this computer is IT Idiot XP01. It's a member of the work group called Workgroup, but what I want to do is I want to make it a member of the domain. Okay, so we say, make a member of that domain. Now the domain, I can't remember what I called it.
Isn't it
IT Idiots. Okay, the name of the domain is IT Idiots, and a domain is just a grouping of machines. IT Idiots. Okay, so what's it done now? Okay, so I've just said...
asking you to confirm the change into the name and password of an account with permission to join the domain. Sorry, I misread it.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Lots of people don't bother reading dialog boxes. But yeah, what it's asking me now is it's saying, well, hang on a sec, you want to join this domain. You need some kind of security to join this domain. Otherwise, I could just take this machine here, join the domain of any company I wanted and try and hack the account database. So there's a certain degree of security to join a domain. Now, if I just go to the domain here, and if I look under computers, these are all the machines that can actually access the domain. Now, I didn't really want you to see that, so I'm going to delete that and pretend that wasn't there, because that was me adding it earlier. And we did a little bit of preparation, not much, but a little bit. So what it's asking me on the XP machine, it's saying, I want an administrator of the domain. Okay, so an administrator of the domain will have enough permissions to join this client machine to the domain. Yeah. And what we're really looking at on the domain, let's go back to the domain database, go to users. We're going to supply the credentials of that guy, the administrator of the domain. Since he's the most powerful user. So let's pop into here, the username, administrator, and the password. Password. Excited? So what it's doing now, for guys actually in the know, it's actually trying to find the domain. So it'll be finding the domain by doing a Win's broadcast, by looking at your Win server, or by looking in DNS. Typically, it's going to be DNS in Active Directory networks now. Come on, come on. There we go. So we've got welcome to the IT Idiots domain. So click on OK, and it's going to ask to reboot. Okay, you must restart this computer for changes to take effect. So let's just OK in that and restart. Okay, so that machine is now part of the domain. Pretty cool.
That's pretty straightforward, wasn't it?
Not, it's easy. Eh? So let's go back to the domain account database over here. And there's the user accounts. Let's look at computers. And we can see that there's a new computer account in there now. And it is IT Idiot XP01. And that is just the machine I've just added. So we can see when we go to the XP client and we join it to the domain, it would automatically create a computer account in the domain account database, and that's exactly what I'm looking at now.
From your server, that's suggesting all sorts of wonderful possibilities going forward.
It's unbelievable. The possibility of group policies, software deployment. Oh. Right. Right, so back to XP. This is my client machine, but it's not in the workgroup anymore. It's in the domain. Okay. So now what I can do is go back to the domain, because I can't remember what user I created. What was he? Fred. Yeah, Fred. So we've got Fred defined on the domain. Let's go back to the XP machine here, and I'm going to say log on as Fred. Password is, for me, I'll just put password. And if I click on the options bar now, we can see what we're logging on to. It says log on to IT Idiot XP01, which is the name of this machine. So what do you think is going to happen if I click on OK there? Is that going to log me on? Just log me onto this. Perhaps if I give you the options, I can either log on to this machine or log on to IT Idiots, which is the name of the domain.
You want to log on to IT Idiots, don't you?
Exactly. Now, if I log on to this IT Idiot XP01,
you're logging onto the same computer, aren't you?
Let's go OK. Oh, system couldn't log you on. Make sure username and domain are correct. Why? What was happening there?
The username is correct. So you're logging on to Idiot P01. So you only so you've introduced Fred into your domain already.
Yeah.
However, Fred's.
No, I think you're getting it.
Yeah.
So the Idiot XP01 is just one isolated computer with an XP on that network.
That's the local account database, yeah.
And because it can't.
Fred's not in there, is he?
No,
Fred's
because he's
not
in the domain, but not in the Idiot XP01.
Exactly. We started off by creating a couple of users, or I forget what it was, Bob, in the local account database. Okay, so Bob will be able to log on to IT Idiot XP01. Okay, but now because we're logging onto the domain, we just change that box and say, let's log on to IT Idiots.
That was the name of the domain.
That's the name of the domain.
Gotcha.
Right, so I'm going to sing or something with white space. No. Not you. Right, so I've logged onto the domain. It takes a little while to start up with, because what it's doing is it's creating what's referred to as your profile. This is something, again, we're investigating in a later episode. But this is me now logged onto the domain. Now, just to check on that, if I do a Control-Delete on that, I can see that Fred is logged onto IT Idiots. So he's logged onto the domain.
So what do you think would happen now, Shifty, if the domain controller went down?
If the domain controller went down, well, Fred wouldn't be able to log on to the network.
Yeah, absolutely right.
That's not strictly true, though.
There's something called cache credentials, but we won't go into that at the moment. because we confused the guy.
Control Alt Delete.
But essentially, you got the right idea.
You got it right.
Windows security.
Okay, so I'm going to log off this thread in a moment. Let's have a little bit of a play around.
I think that's a pretty good point. I'd say time-wise, you've done fitting in pretty well here.
Okay.
How long have we been going? I'll say about 45 minutes.
Okay, well, I do just do one last thing. On here, we can now see Fred there. Okay, Fred, we're looking at the domain account database, and let's say Fred's just left the company. I don't want Fred to log on anymore, so I can right-click on Fred here and say Disable Account. And all you need to do is disable that account there on the domain, and now Fred will not be able to log on to any of your XP clients that are joined to that domain. Whereas if Fred was to find 5,000 times locally, one time locally on 5,000 clients, you have quite a lot of work to do. There's so many other reasons to run a domain, but I'm just sort of tackling it quite simplistically at first.
But I guess the beauty of disabling Fred's account rather than deleting it is because if Fred's got some files here, we don't want to be deleting Fred's account because Fred leaves the company. There could be some files there, so we're just disabling the account rather than deleting it.
You're absolutely right. And Windows 2003 has got some wonderful features. For example, in this network, just following on from Nick's point, if Fred did have some files and we were using Windows 2003 disk quotering, what we could then do is get all the files that Fred created to be copied over into, another area for review, or maybe a public area, something like that. Right, so Fred's been disabled. Not literally. Let's go to XP now. Are you paying attention?
Yeah.
Okay. Controller.
Making notes.
Log on now. Control Z. Let's log on. And let's log on to Fred. PA. Now, I don't quite know what happened.
In true editing style.
True editing style. It's pretty cached one.
I was going to say, has it not got cached credentials going on here?
Yeah.
You see...
Right, let's try that one again.
I shouldn't ask the question. Why did Fred log on when you just disabled him?
Yeah, it was the good question, but I think it was cached. There you go.
There we go.
Okay, so your account's been disabled. Please see your system administrator. That's it.
That's a pretty straightforward way to disable the account. But it makes more sense to disable it than delete it in case of sensitive files.
To start with,
one thing they always used to say in the MCSE course is when someone leaves, disable their account rather than deleting it, because if I disable their account, what I can then do is reset their password, log on as them, maybe scavenge some email that's important whilst they were working there, and basically gain access to the files that they were working on.
It so happens, real world example, people buy software for the company, they've got registered, they get the registration codes, it's in an email that hasn't been passed on. It's only several months later that you remember that this guy was the guy who bought it, and it can get you out of so much trouble. A number of times we've had to do it is unbelievable.
Right. I'm going to go back to the slides now. Not that one though. Right, so you can Workgroups and domains, Shifty.
Workgroups and domains, yeah. Domains are a centralised account database, and
so how does that benefit an organisation? Easy to maintain. Easy to maintain. I need to create one account. Easy to secure. I can disable that account, and that user cannot access any resources. You can download the podcast, mate. Other stuff as well. Right, Microsoft Networking. Let's go back to my PowerPoint slide just for a second. You got anything to add, Nick? Anything exciting?
Not really, not at this point.
Or ever, in fact.
Well, it's very true. It's very true.
Right, dude, so you've got a little bit of work to do for next week. That was just an introduction, to get us all bedded in, give us an idea of what a podcast is all about, really. But your homework, should you choose to accept it, is you've got two machines. You've got a laptop machine, you've got a desktop machine. I want you to come back next week with the specifications of them.
Oh.
Okay, now when we talk about specifications, we're talking about hard disks, size of the hard disk, amount of physical memory it's got, processor speed, think we'll leave it at that. Tell me the operating system as well. So that's on both machines. And more importantly than that, I want you to find out how much specification they've got, and I want you to tell me what tools you used to find those. Okay, now I'm not going to help you on this because I think one of the important points of learning is that if you get spoon-fed too much, you switch your brain off. So I think if we give you something to look at, and I'm not going to help you at all doing this.
Okay.
Okay, so how are you going to go about it? Google it? I'm just going to say, I'll give them a little help. Device manager. That's all I'm going to say.
I guess the other thing which we'd probably quite like to do is to open this out to you guys. I mean, obviously there's going to be a varying degrees of knowledge out there, but for the IT type people, if you want to try this out on other IT illiterate people, get them to watch the podcast and maybe try this out. We'd love to find out how you find people are getting on with this as well.
Yeah, any feedback is good.
That would be pretty good.
Okay, the next thing, we've seen two different types of operating system in that last, in the podcast. We saw Windows XP and we saw Windows 2003. What I want you to do is find out the minimum specifications of those two. So if I was to buy Windows XP, well, what type of computer would I need? How much memory would it need? How much hard disk space would it need? What type of processor would it need?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I want to find out on Windows XP and Windows 2003 server. Again, Google's your friend. Okay, just Google it. That's all you need to do.
And that goes for everybody else out there. Google.
I work on site as a technical
Guys,
consultant.
we're out of tape.
Well, yeah, tape. The other thing I sort of recommended was if you do want to follow along with this, by all means, that'd be great if we can get some MCSEs just off the back of this podcast. That'd be ideal. So if you want to follow along, we will get more technical. We will get a bit more relevant as we progress. I would strongly recommend you investigating VMware. Microsoft also do virtual PC as well. So have a look at those two. There's trial software available from each site. And also 2003 and Windows XP are available as evaluation as well from their site. So you can do this all on evaluation. So that's the thing to do.
You've also got that book as well, haven't you? Which
again, I'm not really peddling books, but a nice, easy-to-read book is this one by Mark Minassi, Windows Server 2003.
I think we'll probably be able to just edit that in and splice that in so we can get a good shot.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, it's quite old now. It's nice and easy to read. You don't need to know anything about Windows NT4. It doesn't assume any prior knowledge, so it's kind of nice. It's a little bit dull for people in the market already, in the IT field already, but it's not so bad. And
what's the name of your
it's not new. Mark Minassi. It's not new.
So if you can get that read by next week, we'll...
read by next week. Marketplace, Amazon Marketplace, you can probably get it cheap, or eBay or something, but I wouldn't buy it new, because it's not so new now. So that's about it. Okay, guys. What we're going to do now is just move on to some different areas of... just
try and lighten it up a little bit and just sort of have a little bit more of a chill now we've got the technical side out of the way.
So I don't quite know what we're going to do, and I think Shabby, I've done enough presenting now. I think it's your turn, dude. So
there's a lot for me to take in there.
We're actually going to call this Shabby's weekly news bulletin, this section, whereas Shabby's going to tell us the latest news or something relevant that happened this week in the IT field. And I think the thing I'm going to ask you to talk about today is something called boot camp. If you could just take us through what boot camp is.
Sounds pretty exciting to me.
It's really exciting. No, you haven't heard me talk about it at all today. Apple. Anything to do with Apple, perhaps?
No, keep going.
We're not talking about fruit here. Apple. Right, boot camp. I'll give you a little bit of help. And what boot camp is, guys, I'm sure it's released this week, and it allows you to run Windows XP on Intel Macintosh. I did mention it, didn't I? So why didn't you remember?
When you described it as boot camp, I didn't know what you meant.
Okay. So what does that actually mean, dude? What does it mean?
You're running a Windows operating system on an Apple PC. Apple Mac.
Yeah.
And that ties in with what you were telling me about my Mac that's sitting in the box that I haven't unpacked earlier on. You were telling me about my Mac, weren't you?
Yes. Oh, yes. The fact that it possesses an Intel chip now. That's correct, isn't it?
Intel chip.
Mm-hmm.
What chip did it have prior to that?
Athlon.
An Athlon.
as a guess?
That's really poor.
Okay, sorry. Okay, what chip does a Mac have? What fryer?
It's a Motorola chip, if anyone's interested. Yeah. I don't think that's going to work, this bit.
No, it's not. It's
I think it's turning out to be very drawn out, and in fact all we're doing is giving you the news. So what we're going to do is by next week we're going to give Shabby something, and we're going to get him to polish up, and he'll present it.
That sounds like it. Who's got the homework here?
Just think, guys, your computer spent the best part of 30 minutes downloading just this section.
But we might be able to get something useful off you, Shabby, because it's a little bit hard to mention, but I know you're a pharmacist, though, and I've been having this issue recently. As part of my job, I spend a lot of time sitting at a computer, sitting on the side.
I think you're off the camera, dude. I think you're way off the camera.
Huh?
I think you want to move on in, because I don't think people are seeing you here.
Well, as I say, I often sit on hard chairs, write lots of documentation. It's been cold recently, so I've been leaning against the radiator a lot, and it's a little bit uncomfortable when I sit down. And I was wondering if perhaps you could help me with that.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah?
I think I do. I've been having the same problem.
Is it an IT thing then? What is that?
I think it could be, but I've been having the same problem. I got recommended this, and I don't know what it is or how to use it. So
Perhaps, Shabby,
you could explain to us what it is.
Help us out with that.
What is it, and what will it do for us?
Anusol is a cream for hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids are swollen blood vessels that appear in the rear passage or anus. It usually occurs after sitting down a lot.
Right.
And sitting, no, I wouldn't say sit, or if you've had difficulties passing motions, or when passing a bowel movement.
Yeah, that sounds it.
Am I supposed to be serious in this?
I don't know. So
It sounds fairly serious to me. Anyway,
so how long do I have to use this for?
You have about a week.
About a week.
Or so. You usually apply it 2 or 3 times a day, and it should
apply it.
You apply it, yes.
You don't. It's not a medicine. You don't swallow it.
No,
thank God for that.
It's a cream.
I'm glad I got some advice on this first. Am I going to get immediate relief from this, or is this a sort of a longer term?
It contains ingredients that soothe and protect that raw area and give you relief quite quickly as well.
And how do I use it?
You usually apply it after each bowel movement, which is morning and night. I'm reading out the label.
Does it contain urea hydrogen peroxide?
It does not contain urea hydrogen peroxide, yes.
Label.
Yep. And it's not to be taken in any set way or form, so it's applied at the local area.
Out of curiosity, just what I guess.
How much would that cost?
It's about £5 or £6 roughly a tube of.
$5.99 from your local friendly pharmacist.
Do
I
I
guess.
actually need a whole tube, or will that see me through in the next sort of 5 years or so? Could I just keep it in my kitchen cabinet?
No, I would suggest once you've used it, I'd probably dispose of it.
Is it a preventative thing? Can I just put a bit on every day to sort of prevent things from happening?
Not so much. No. It won't necessarily prevent it if you're prone to them or.
Okay, well, I think we've really dragged out the arse-base issues long enough. So anyway, guys, I guess our pharmacist is recommending Anusol if you've got any arse-based issues.
Thank you for that, Shelly. And thank you for listening.
Okay, I guess that kind of wraps up this episode. So if you like it, if you want to recommend this to your friends, and let's see if we can build a social network of people who are interested.
It will get better, guys. It will get more funny, and it will get technical. My real aim is to get some MCSEs out of this, and we can do Exchange Systems Management Service. So, it's got some great scope. All we need is your feedback, guys. So if you could give us some feedback, would be great at the email address, feedback@itidiots.com. That's feedback@itidiots.com.
I guess I can put a little overlay down the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing we must do in the next hour is actually buy that domain name.
I really think we should. And we'll try and get a website up and running, I guess, from where you guys can download it. But yeah, okay. Well, I guess
that's it. See you next time, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
It's like Sputnik, vertical, quick, pinky, and pop. Well, that was also, wasn't it? He'll be crying himself to sleep tonight on his huge pillow. You make me